Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. I'm Heather. Today we're doing a full sewing tutorial for something super fun, super cute. We are making the Baigini mini backpack by Hemazing Patterns. You guys. Oh yeah. Look at her. I mean, so cute. This is basically the mini version of the Baga 3-in-1 convertible bag that is also available at Hemazing Bags, and it is so cute. I've been looking for something adorable to add to backpacks or bags going back to school, and this is definitely it. So we're gonna get right into it. You'll see as we move through the tutorial, I don't cut out when I make mistakes, and I do that on purpose. It's not a reflection of anyone but me, but I love to show what it really looks like to sew something, and that's what we do here on my channel every day. Now this is listed as an intermediate pattern, and you know, if you've watched me before, I typically say anybody can do anything, but I want to tell you, this is really an intermediate bag. And I can't think of any way to make it a beginner bag. I do think if you take your time and don't get frustrated, or take breaks if you get frustrated, and really read through the pattern instructions first, it's totally possible if you've been sewing for a while and you're looking to add something new to your repertoire. The way that she puts together patterns, they look like, I don't know how she does her magic. It's magic. It looks like it's not going to come together, and then you guys, all of a sudden it does. And so I do think this is intermediate. However, if you take your time with anything, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. I am not an expert. I just like to hop on here and show you guys some things that maybe you haven't seen before. I do have some special tips that I include as we sew, so those will be in the video as well. All right, so let's get into our materials for this cute little mini backpack. All right, so here we are with our materials. I will link everything below, pattern, everything from the interiors to the exteriors to the binding, anything, the webbing, anything that I can remember where it came from. I will make sure that I link it in the description below, just so you know. So we'll start here. This is 1 inch wide elastic that we're going to use for binding. If you've watched before, I keep trying to use elastic. I had 5/8 inch elastic before, and I'm thinking maybe that's why I wasn't so successful. So I was able to get my hands on some 1 inch wide elastic, and that's what we're going to try today for binding. We're going to put a hang tag in. So not a bag tag necessarily that you sew on, but one that sort of you sew into your seam. We're not going to make backpack straps or the swivel hook. We're going to use webbing. So I've cut those per the pattern, and this webbing is from Wonderground Fabric. This binding is from Amazon, and these are from an Etsy shop so that I had custom made. So yeah, so we're going to use this webbing from Wonderground Fabrics. This is 1/2 inch for our backpack straps and our swivel hook strap. We have our swivel hook here in rainbow to match our zipper hardware, and this is from Waywack. Over here we have our number 5 zipper tape cuts, along with 2 of our zipper pulls and our zipper tabs for our front middle zipper, which we'll be working on first, so you'll see that relatively soon. We have our back panel pieces, our exterior and our interior. Our exterior is from Itchin' to Get Stitchin', and our interior is from Oh So Pretty Custom Fabrics. And our pink, by the way, is waterproof canvas, and that is from Wonderground Fabrics. And our exterior is vinyl, interior waterproof canvas as well. This is everything that we need here to create our front panel piece. So we have our exterior middle pockets, our interior middle pockets. We have the back of our pocket and the lining of our pocket. And then these are our side bump outs. It's what gives it that sort of 3D effect. So that's that. And then here we have our gusset pieces. So this is our zipper panels, exterior and interior, and then this is our gusset piece, again, exterior and interior here. It seems like a lot of pieces for a small bag, and it sort of is, but it's gonna come together and make total sense once we get over to the sewing machine, so let's head over there now. Okay, so we're at the machine, which is a Juki TL2010Q. We're using Tex 35 weight thread from Wizardry Stitchery in white, because I think that will match the best. And we're gonna start with our front panel piece, which is actually a lot of pieces, but it's the most difficult part of making this bag, and so I like to get that out of the way. So here we've taken the smaller of our 2 zipper cuts, and I have added the pull on already, and what we're going to do first is just make our zipper tabs. And so we're just putting right side down and then right side up for our what will be our lining piece, and that means that the right sides of our tabs are together. We're going to do that on both ends. Okay, and then we're going to sew together per the seam allowance in the pattern. And then we're just going to flip apart and top stitch. Just taking our time over that zipper. Then we have a finished side on both sides. Do the same thing over here. And I'm using a really big zipper pull, so if you are also, just keep that in mind. Make sure it stays far out of the way. Making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, we're just going to do a little trim of anything that's overhanging. It's going to get sewn in anyways, so it's not a big deal. So there's our front zipper. I'm just gonna burn our threads to close those up. Okay. So now we'll begin to build our pocket. And we want our zipper pull to be facing up so that when it's closed, it's in the up position and you move it down to open it. So with that in mind, we want to make sure that the front of our middle pocket piece lines up with the curve coming to the center. So we're going to find the middle part of our zipper. And we will just match up our tabs and then find the center. I'll take a chalk I'm gonna just make a center mark. I don't like to cut into zipper tape, but if you certainly can. That is totally your choice. Okay, so now we have our center marks. And we will just find our center marks here and do our triangle cuts. And do that on our lining panels as well. Okay. All right. So now we're going to take our center mark and we're going to flip this upside down, and we're going to match that with the center mark on our zipper tape. Okay, and then we will take our matching interior find our center markings. So our exterior is right side down and our interior is going to be right side up. We are going to have to be mindful here again of our zipper pull. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and stitch together. There is a seam allowance in the pattern. However, there is also a note that if you use a different seam allowance, you might just have to adjust. And I can tell we're getting close to our zipper pull, so we're just going to move this down out of the way now. Right, sewn together. Now you're going to pull them away, and you want to just make sure that your top curve is matching, and that will tell you that you did in fact put them together the correct way. And here we're just pulling away. This is waterproof canvas, so it creases really nicely. So you don't have to iron it. I'm just putting a couple of clips, and then we're going to go ahead and top stitch. I have a top stitch side, so I'm always better over here. So I'll switch things up a little bit from time to time to make sure we're on my good side for top stitching. And you guys, a top stitch, if you've never done one, is just 1/8 of an inch. And we're just coming to little bulky parts with our zipper tab here. So we'll take our time. And then again. So we're just hand cranking. And one side all set. Our top stitch came out great. And we're going to repeat those same steps for the opposite side. So exterior facing down. Interior facing up. And you do have to pay attention when you're cutting. There are sections that are mirrored, and that is definitely important to note, that you have to mirror some of your cuts, or else you will end up not being able to put your pieces together correctly. Okay. Let's see, we're coming together already. So there are a lot of pieces, but it comes together pretty quickly and really kind of cool. We're going to take our time again in those parts that are bulky. Our canvases are on the heavier side, so that's important to note. It's totally fine to get a little arm workout here. Hand cranking. There we go. So cute. And I'm totally fine with hand cranking when I know that it's going to give me a better result. And we did not use the seam allowance in the pattern, so we are going to have to trim up our pieces, but it's very easy to do. So we are taking one of our pocket lining pieces, just gonna find the centers, and we're gonna put our piece that we were just working on right side down. So this is our interior, and we're gonna take our lining piece and we're gonna flip that right side down right on top, and we're gonna center our piece. And so we're just looking at the center here. Okay, and now we're gonna do a trim of our sides. All right, so that's what we're working with here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna sew along the sides and the bottom. I'm gonna leave the top for now because we are gonna have to recut up here, but I wanna make sure that we're where we need to be. And I also don't wanna sew it this side down because our zipper pull is so big, we run the risk of it sort of getting in our way. So we're gonna baste this together. So here you can see the reason we did that is because this created our little front pocket. So now we have a back to it. And before we go any further, we are going to trim up our zipper tabs down here. Anything overhanging. And same thing up here, we want to try to keep our shape as close as possible. That way our bag at the end comes out the way we want it to. Okay, so now what we need to do is, again, so this is still open, we're going to close it in a second. We now need to take our second lining piece and we're putting that face up. And this is what's going to create our finished front panel. And now that we have taken off all of our extra, we'll be able to sew right around with no problems. So just doing a clip. And then when you're basting, you're just doing 1/8 of an inch, so just right around. All right, and there we go. All basted together. So now the inside of our big interior backpack will have a lining as well. How cute. Look at that. So cute. All right, so now we need to add the part that makes our bag sort of be 3D and bubble out, which is our side panel pieces. And we are lining them up, curved side in, like this. So we have little marks over here. Our fabric comes in on an indent, and we want our curved side to match up with that. So we are gonna do some finagling here. And this is really what makes it the most difficult part of this bag, are these curves here. So we're just sort of working it in and clipping as we go. We have a little extra, so I think that means I pulled a little too good. Okay. So this is what we're looking at. Here. So now what we want to do is, I've got a little bulge here I'm going to fix. This is definitely a tight fit, but totally workable. Okay, so now what we want to do is go right down here at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm tempted to staple, but we'll see if we can make it work without the staple. We're just going to take our time here. It's pretty hard to see, probably for you and for me, so I apologize in advance. Taking my screwdriver and keeping my fabric sort of as lined up as possible. Readjusting as needed. Okay. Yep, that did not work for us. I think it's the walking foot because it pulls. It's so big back here. So I'm gonna hop off, change out the walking foot, and we're gonna go again. Okay, so you know how I said you could staple, but we're not going to? Well, we did. All right, so I changed out my foot, and this is not anything on the pattern or the design of the pattern or the bag or anything like that. This is a me thing. I think that walking foot can do absolutely everything because it's a walking foot, but it's got all this extra bulk in the back, and so this is a super tight curve, and what was happening was as I was sewing, it was just really taking that fabric and moving it because there wasn't enough space for this walking foot. So I switched out to I think it's called a tank foot. I got it from Soulful Therapy. And it is a heavy duty foot that will help me get through everything that we need to get through, but is much smaller. And so it's not gonna get in the way in the same capacity. I did go ahead and do the other side just to test it out. And the staples worked perfectly. We do have to remove these, which we'll do together on camera, and then when we go to attach our lining piece, I will once again staple that so you'll see my stapling process. I just didn't think you had to see it twice, but that would be my big tip here is you actually do probably want to use staples or something that's going to keep that fabric basically really where you want it. When we take out clips, fabric tends to move and shift, and most of the times that's okay, but just here, that's just not gonna work for us. So let's keep that in mind. So we're gonna go ahead and sew. And with staples, you just wanna make sure that you don't sew over the staple because that will definitely break your needle. And so you can see that, we'll just turn it out, that was perfect. So again, it was just my error in leaving the walking foot on, but look at how cute. Okay, all right, so now we need to remove our staples. And I just have a regular staple remover. I got my stapler and staple remover from Waywax, so you can just go on the website and search it. I actually originally got it for the mini heartbreaker so that my heart shape stayed where I wanted it to, because that's a pretty intermediate level curve right there on the zipper tape if you've ever sewn that. And so I got it thinking it will help me, and this is actually the also perfect bag to use it for these tight curves. And this right here is what makes it an intermediate level bag, is these small curves, but it's gonna come up with such a really cool result. I'm so excited. It is definitely worth the sew. And you just want to make sure you don't rip out any of your seams while you're ripping out your staples. Okay. All right, that part is done. Now what we want to do is we're just making small snips all the way down our seam allowance, which is going to allow this to lay nicely when we turn it. It will also help us when we attach our lining here in a second. And we're just making them all the way down. Okay. Now we're gonna flip to our lining side, and you can see I already have one of our lining panels. Okay, and so you want the lining, but not this exterior bubble. So you just want this side here, and it's gonna look like this. It's not gonna make much sense, but I promise it will. And so again, we're taking the corner, the rounded edge, we're lining up our flat piece here at the top first, and we are gonna pin before we staple. So we're lining that up, and then we're gonna come all the way down. And I know it will make sense, I promise. We just have to, we just gotta do some smushing. We're gonna line up the bottom here. And there is a straight line on the bottom too, and that's what you wanna line up. So you have a straight line on the top and a straight line on the bottom. And then we can come and start to move our fabric around our curve. And it will start to make more sense. I actually had to stop and reread the directions a bunch of times because I was like, wait, what am I doing? Why does it look like this? But this is what it's supposed to look like. So again, we're just making sure that our curves line up. And you think they're not going to, but then look at this. Here we are. Lined up, right? See, this is the side that we're gonna sew along. So we are gonna put staples in here. We'll start from the bottom. And I'm just putting them about 1/8 of an inch away. You want them to be in far enough that they catch all your fabric so that they hold everything where you want it, and not out far enough that you sew over them. And we are sewing with a larger seam allowance here when we put the lining on. And that is per the pattern instructions as well. So you can see, so this is why I thought I had it wrong, because it's all smushy in here and I was like, what's going on? How does this make any sense? But it's not wrong. It is how you want it to be. Just as you're sewing, you'll want to make sure that you're adjusting this interior part of your fabric, basically where your hole is, to make sure that you're not sewing that in when you shouldn't be. See that? Got a nice sew. And now we're just gonna take our staples out, just like we did before. See how you think it's not gonna make sense and then it does? I actually really like that. I like when you're like, how on earth is this gonna come together? And then it comes together. Big fan. Okay. So it does take a little more time to staple, but in this case, that time is really worth it, I think. I think it's what makes the difference here. Obviously, if you can do this without stapling, go for it. I am not the end-all be-all for advice, but it's what made it work for me. I'm just putting my staples in a pile so that I don't end up stepping on them. Okay. Oh, this one doesn't want to go. There we go. And now we just flip. How cute is that, you guys? See, and now we've got our 3D look. So I did go ahead and just trim off some of this excess here. I don't want it in the seam allowance, and it's not necessary. Oops, sorry guys. On the top and the bottom, and that will just help with some of that bulky bits. Now the only other thing that we have to do, and again, this is the most difficult part of what we're doing for this, is we're just gonna go ahead and baste these sides together here. And this will help us during final construction. It's not necessary, but again, it will be helpful. And see right there, we got a thick seam, and this is what I was talking about. Sort of taking away some of that bulk, because we do have to put this together afterwards. So we are going to come back and sew. There we go. All right, you guys, that's the front of our bag. Look at how cute. And the sides. Oh yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the back of our bag, which is going to be a breeze compared to what we just did. I have just fixing the bobbin, you guys. We had a little extra thread in there from that little hard part. All right, we're caught. So now we're just going to take our back panel piece and find our centers. And our swivel hook is first. We're just going to thread this on. And we're lining this up with the center of our bag on the top. And we'll baste that on. So this will be what our cute little bag hangs from. I just forgot to burn our edges, so I'm doing that really quickly. This will just stop our webbing from fraying. So it is an important step. And then we're just lining up our backpack straps, one right next to our swivel hook on the left-hand side, and one right next to our swivel hook on the right-hand side. Baste it on, and then we are going to go a 1/2 inch over from our center mark on each side. And that will make our little backpack straps on the back. We're going to baste those down into place. And now our exterior back panel is done. We'll just cut our threads, and we're going to attach our back panel piece for the interior. So we'll just find the centers on that as well, top and bottom. And because we're binding, we're going wrong side to wrong side. So we will line up our center markings. Top and bottom. And then we just baste this together. And you guys, that's it for our back panel. So I see why we did the front panel first. We got the hard work out of the way. Okay. So then we're just gonna sew from exterior side up. We don't want anything to get in the way while we're sewing. And we're just basting together. There we go. Back panel complete. And we're ready to move on to our zipper panel. Quickly before we do that, I am just going to sew in our hang tag here. And this will make it so that once we attach the gusset, this little baby will hang out. We'll get a little tag in there. All right, you could do a bag tag on the outside as well. That's just not what we're doing today. So now we're doing our zipper panel. And we're doing our zipper panel, you guys, just like we would build any other zipper panel gusset. So we're going right sides of our exterior down, facing the right side of our zipper. And then we're taking our interior and we're putting that right side up, so the right sides are facing each other. And we're just going to stitch together. Pull apart, and we're going to top stitch. Okay, and we're just going to make sure everything stays pulled apart from each other. There we go. So one side is done. And we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. Making sure that we line up where we have lined up our first panel so that they're the same. Exterior right side down. Interior right side up. Creating this zipper panel and gusset piece is our last construction step before final construction. So we're almost there. Okay, and same thing, we're going to pull apart and top stitch. Now I did not follow the seam allowance, so I will have to amend the size of the gusset. And that's just because I don't use a zipper foot, so I can't get as close. All right, so we're just going to take our gusset and we're going to center it. We're going to use our air erasing marker. Just draw a line. Okay. And we're going to use those lines to help us stitch our panels together. So we don't want to stitch across our zipper yet because we don't have our zipper pull on, and that's really important to note. We're just going to baste together our pieces here. And we're going to use that mark that we drew. And then same thing over here. And now we're just going to cut off our excess. All right, there we go. And that is a good tip to use if you use a different seam allowance than patterns, then how you can go ahead and line up your panels to make them match more. So now we want to put our zipper pull on before we forget. This is our last opportunity to do it. Okay, we have a little bubble, so we're gonna try again. You get a bubble if you don't line up your teeth correctly inside the zipper. Sounds better. Oh yes. All right. Now we're going to take our gusset and we're going to just center it. Again, we still left a little bit of extra and that's okay. We can take care of that later. And we're doing exteriors, right sides together. Interior, right sides together, and we're just again lining up our gusset panels with each other. And we are going to follow the seam allowance here. This one is very important to having a successfully sized gusset. I'm just going to burn our zipper in now that we're all set with it. That will stop it from fraying. Okay, and we are going to put a top stitch in here. Or we might not. Well, at least not yet. We're going to go ahead and attach our gusset over on this end as well. And then we'll see. I did a bag recently where I didn't sew because I knew that it was going to be like a big, it was going to be a big seam. I didn't want to break a needle. It actually worked out okay. So we're going to see once we flip it. And so here we just again did right sides together. Our lining is right sides together. And we are once again following that seam allowance. And we're just trimming off the seam allowance outside of our stitching on our zipper panels. All right. So now we can flip this. And I think actually we're not gonna sew, so you could top stitch here, but we're not going to. Instead, I'm just gonna make sure that we baste down our gusset pieces, which should give us what we need to keep everything in place. So we'll do this side first. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Here we go, basted together. So cute. So cute. I'm just trimming our stitches. Now we need to find the centers, and you do that by lining up where your gussets come together. And you do a snip at the top. And snip at the bottom. Same thing over here. So you're making 4 snips all together. All right, we're in the home stretch. We are going to start by attaching our front panel because I know that that's going to be the most difficult part. So we're turning this wrong side out. I actually can't see my centers anymore, so we're going to fix that. We're just lining up all of our panels to get our center mark. All right, we have our centers clipped. So we have wrong sides out on both. And we want our zipper to open to the right and close to the left. So this is perfect. So we're just gonna take our center clips, line those up. We're just clipping along the long sides first. Long sides, the short, before we get to the curve. And here we're probably going to go ahead and use some staples as well, just to make sure everything stays where we want it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish clipping. I will staple And then I am going to go ahead and sew around our bag. So once I do that, I will staple, and then I'm going to stitch our gusset on just like we would any other gusset. And then we'll come back together. Okay, you guys, so you can see I went ahead and sewed our binding and everything onto our front panel. I'm going to walk you through, or we're going to sew together our back panel. We're not using staples on this side. Our back panel is not as bulky, so I'm not as worried. We have clipped into our gusset, and now the shape of our back panel is actually a lot different than the front, and so it matched perfectly on the gusset. Here we have a little bit of overhang, but that's not okay. I mean, that is okay. Of course it's okay. We're just gonna make sure it's the same overhang on both sides so that when we sew our bag together, it's still equal, and then we'll just cut off the extra. So again, it's not a big deal. We are gonna go ahead and get this under gusset side up, and so we're gonna have to smush a little and move some things out of the way. We're gonna start over on this side like I usually do. Sorry if my head is in the way. I'm just trying to make sure we get lined up in our seam allowance, and then I will move myself. All right. And we want to make sure that we're on the right side of our clips in the fabric. I'm just using the screwdriver to sort of nudge stuff out of the way and keep things where we want it. Bottom corners are going to be the most difficult part. And we're kind of going in here, making sure that everything is out of the way. So our backpack straps, our zipper, it's a small space to sort of get your hand into. You just want to make sure you don't go over the metal in your zipper or anything like that with your zipper, with your needle. So I'm just making sure that that's all out of the way. We just want to make sure our backpack straps are down there, also all out of the way. This is taking some arm strength. To say at least my arms get a workout here at the machine. All right, we're just checking to make sure. Looks like we have one small area where we need to, oh no, that's actually okay. right, perfect. So we're just gonna clip off anything extra. And this will help us with our binding to make sure that it lines up where we want it to. Nothing's in the way. So we are going to take our binding, and again, this is the 1-inch elastic, and it does seem like, you guys, I just had the wrong size before, so hopefully, sorry, I'm just, again, just cutting to make sure we're even here. Hopefully that works out for us. We'll see soon. And we're just going to, now shiny side up, and it does have a line in the middle. So we're going to line up that line with our seam, and we're not going to stretch it too much. We want it to be tight, but not overly tight. It's great for corners because you can just sort of lightly stretch it over, and it's pretty thin too, so it doesn't add a lot of bulk. This is my first successful go at elastic. Okay, so we just went a little bit over, and we're going to take our end and fold it under so that we don't have a raw edge. There we go. So you can see our little hang tag still hangs out. We're good. Now, binding is one of my favorite things to do because you don't have to do it perfectly. No one's gonna see it. We're using white thread on white elastic, and so we're just gonna go for it at a slightly smaller stitch length, or seam allowance, not stitch length, seam allowance than we sewed our bag together with, because we don't wanna mess up those stitches that we already have in place, because I know that those are good. And I'm just not a careful binder, so I would prefer those stitches be the final stitches. But you don't have to be a perfect binder to bind bags. That's the point. That's why I love them. And I probably, it looks like maybe could have stretched the elastic a little bit more. It's good to know. This is actually the first time that I have been able to use it, so. Good to keep in mind for next time. Okay, we're almost back to where we started. Okay, not too bad. This elastic is very forgiving, and once we turn our bag inside out, it'll be sort of smushed up against those seams, and so it's gonna look perfect. let's head on over to the finish table and turn this bag out and see what our final product looks like. You guys, here we are. You know I love being over here at the finish table, and we have the cutest mini backpack. I just love the shape of this, the like bubble out. We have our working front pocket. We've got our cute little backpack straps, our swivel hook so we can just hook this on to anything. We have our main panel, main gusset, and then we have got our big inside, and this is a good size mini backpack, you guys. We've got our binding, which we were finally successful with elastic. It only took us how long? It's way longer than even you guys know. It was quite a struggle for me. But this is huge. I mean, with this bubble in the front, you're fitting a lot of things in here. You can easily fit a little wallet, AirPods, charging cords, anything. School supplies, if that's where you're bringing it. If you maybe have some IDs and things like that, you totally put that in here. Hook it to a lanyard or a keychain or a backpack or bag. This one's gonna go to Dakota, and don't you worry, I'll let you see when she gets it. Dakota's my daughter, for anyone who hasn't been watching the back to school basics videos that we've been doing. She decided that she didn't want store-bought this year. She wanted mom-made. So this is gonna be my special little gift to her because it is seriously so cute. It is such a great little mini backpack pattern. It taught me some new skills. I have never made a bag with this curve before on it. And I just, you know I'm a fan of a really well-made pattern. And this is a really well-made pattern. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you will try this if you haven't. It's available in different languages too, which I think is such a great thing about Hemazing patterns is there are multiple languages available, and so it really makes it accessible to a lot of people. I hope you go for it. I loved it. I will definitely be making some more of these to add to my little show tables. It takes a long time, but oh my god, what a cutie. And people love mini things. I was in a designer store the other day and there was a million mini bags, and I had to be like drug out of there because mini bags are like, they're my jam. I like the small stuff. So there are plenty of people like me who love the small stuff, and this is a cutie and totally worth it. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you soon.